Yo, what's poppin'?
Yeah.
You here with Legacy Builders US in the building.
Yes, sir.
Is Rashidi coming through or no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, he's coming through. He's coming through.
Okay, yeah, I already sent him. Here we go.
There we go.
We got Rashidi up in the building. What's going on, fam? So today's topic, we're talking about can I ever retire, man? What's that about? Let's go in.
No.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, just open it up, retirement, it isn't really an age, it's a financial decision. And the real question is, are you ready to retire? Could you stop working and still live comfortably?
Right.
That's like, the main thing. There's so many different factors when it comes to retirement, especially the financial aspect to it. You got to think to yourself, do I have enough savings for retirement? Do I have a 401k? Do I have a IRA, which is an individual retirement account? Am I getting a pension? Am I getting these things? Do I have an annuity? Do I have different type of retirement packages that I can use for later on in life? You got to think about it. And then we have to account for like things like, inflation. As we go further into the future, the cost of living keeps going up. Is my income going to match that? Am I going to, have it? The healthcare, we all know healthcare is expensive as hell, right? But it's not gonna get any cheaper as we get older, right? So,
and that's so real.
You get what I'm saying? Like, do we have enough money for healthcare? Taxes. That's another thing. Like, taxes are going to continue to go up too. So are we putting ourselves into position to make sure that we are ready to retire comfortably? That's the main thing.
That's crazy. But can a person actually, because the thing is this, man, it's like, can you retire and actually live good as far as like, you know what I'm saying? Like actually still having good money? Or are you going to retire and just be living off of like Social Security or, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of like that type of situation. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when it comes to retiring, to your point, you got to have multiple avenues. One, for me, put it out there, I'm 40 years old. One, we don't know if Social Security is going to be available for us 27 years from now, because retirement age for us as of right now for men is 67, first off. You know what I mean? And so we don't know if it's going to be there. So, but the main thing is getting down to the basics, to your point, Mr. Lucario, where you having multiple streams of income when you retire, so you can actually retire and stay retired and at least live a decent life and not just in survival mode. Because most old people, if they are retired and they can't work, they're in survival mode. Or in a lot of cases, they're in extreme poverty. And it's almost like being a baby twice. Like they go back to being extra poor when they're old. So it's one of those things where, for me, what I try to preach to people, you got to know the basics. Let's go to the basics. First off, everybody has access to what their Social Security is, meaning that as soon as you start working, Social Security tracks your numbers. As of right now, I'll keep it real. I made decent money in my lifetime. But when it boils down to it, what I get when I retire, if Social Security is still around, $2,600 a month. The average person is not even getting that amount. If you make 40, 50 grand a year, you're probably going to cap out about $1,700 a month to retire. And we know that's not enough to retire. So if you're planning on just retiring on Social Security, if it is available, $1,700 is not enough and $2,600 is not enough. But it's something out there. You know what I mean? The next thing, if you were working or if you have a 9-to-5, do you have a 401k? You know what I mean? Truth is, it's super silly out here if you work in a job that don't have a 401k. You know what I mean? If you don't know about a 401k, you need to ask your human resource departments and contact us, and we'll help you through the process.
Thanks.
But you want to start up a 401k because the average Joe with 401k, they start their 401ks now around 30 or so. They only end up with 300k on average. You know what I mean? And that's if you're making 40, 50k and you start at 30. You know what I mean? And if you're allocating at least, 4 or 5% towards your retirement. So that's two things: Social Security, 401k. The next level is, and not even next level, let's just stop there. So if you're a person that make 40, 50k, you only get 1,700 in Social Security, Let's be honest. Right now with Medicaid, it's about $700 a month for medical insurance. So if you're a person that only got Social Security and you're only gonna get $1,700, you're only living off $1,000 when you retire. And we all know you can't do it. You know what I mean? Unless you're living with family or living in a situation you don't want to live with. Then if you got a 401k, let's be honest, 300k is not that bad. But in all reality is, and K got the formula, but in all reality, 300k is probably only going to last you about like 12, 13 years, depending on your spending habits. And you're on an extreme tight budget. That's if you're disciplined. That's if you're budgeted. That's if you did the things the right way, meaning that, okay, I'm retired and, I got a house that's paid off now. So I'm only paying the taxes on my house. I'm paying for food and medical. So I got a 401k for 300 and Social Security. So now I could like sit down every day. Then after all my bills is paid, I probably have like a cool $1,000 a month. So I could take a little vacation. I could live a little. But let's be honest, most people are not in that situation. Right. So now on to the entrepreneur. Even worse. A lot of entrepreneurs make the vital mistake where they don't realize the moment that you quit your job, you're no longer dumping money into Social Security. So a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize it's all fun and games.
After I start working for the man, I don't got no more Social Security. That's fucked up.
No, you could check your joint and see how much you get paid. What I'm saying is, though, because everybody has access to it. Let's get that clear. Everybody has access to know how much you get paid. You download my Social Security, go to socialsecurity.com. You'll see how much you get for the rest of your life, Mr. Lucario. You know what I mean?
Right. No, but you're saying that if you're an entrepreneur, like let's say you stop working in 2020, so the past 5 years when you was working for yourself, there's no Social Security.
Correct. You're not putting money into it.
No.
So what happens is, and it's crazy because this is real life. What happens is that when you're not paying attention as an entrepreneur, starting your own company, and you take 10, 15 years off from work, now your Social Security is $600-700 a month for the rest of your life. And we know damn well you can't live off no $600-700 a month. So that's why we got to be paying attention of what's going on. Like when you're trying to jump into entrepreneur business, you know what I mean? So that's my take on it, man. You got to have Social Security. You got to have 401k. You got to get a life insurance policy, an IUL to have another investment tool. You want to have a Roth. You know what I mean? Like you want to have at least 4 to 5 different avenues slowly building over a 20, 30-year period at minimum to be able to retire. Because otherwise, you're going to be that 80-year-old person at Walmart with a respirator at the checkout line. That's the reality.
Respirator. That's fucking crazy.
You said the respirator. Man, wow. But I want to piggyback off that real quick. Is that when does a person start? Well, first off, even before that, right? Not everyone is going to work at a job that has a 401k, right? Mm-hmm. So for the ones who don't work at a job who doesn't provide a 401k, it's even more important for you to get into something like you should have something like an IRA. You should have something like an annuity. You should have something like a life insurance policy. Why? Because you only qualify with the IRA and the annuity. You qualify with your money. With the life insurance, you qualify with your money and your health. So it's not something that pretty much almost anybody can get outside if you don't have that 401k. There's a lot of people who work at restaurant jobs, a lot of people who does retail who don't have a 401k, right? So we have to keep that in mind. And if you are one of those people, that's why it's even more important for you to look at these other vehicles for you to start saving for retirement. When do you start saving? Right away. Because to Rob's point, now, because if you we don't have enough discipline, like he said, to put money away. So you have to just put this money away every time you get paid. And don't look at it. Forget about it. Act like it doesn't exist. It's not there. It comes out your check and it goes to the vehicles that it needs to go to, right? By automated system. And call Legacy Builders and we'll help you set that up and fix that for you. And it's super important. And talking about the formula that Rob was talking about earlier, right? Now, by naturally retirement age is 65, but 67, but let's just say 65 to make easier numbers, right? You want to solve for the rest of your life, for your lifespan. So by the time you retire, you're about 65 years old. 20 years after that, you'll be 85. 25 years, you'll be 90. So let's just say whatever you make on an annual basis, you want to times that number by 20 or 25, and that's how much you should have for retirement. What do I mean by that? So if you're making $50,000 a year, by the time you retire, you should have $1 million.
That's
By
great.
the time you retire, you should have $1 million. How did I get that formula? All I did was multiply the 50,000 times 20. That's all I did.
Right.
And the reason why, because you want to solve for every year that you're living past 65.
Right.
And that's not even including the factor of, like, inflation and, taxes going up, like I said earlier, the cost of living and things like that. So you may want to add another
Bills.
correct. You want to add another 5 to 10% of that on that number, if that makes sense, right? So that's a simple, basic formula for you to understand how much money a person should have for retirement. And I'm curious to know, if you're a viewer, if you're listening right now, how old do you want to be when you retire? And how much money do you feel like you need for retirement? If you're a viewer and you're listening and you're paying attention to this podcast right now, type in the chat, how much money would you need for retirement and how old do you want to be when you retire? It's super, super important that you even identify and know those things, right? And, it's past just finance. It's about lifestyle, and there's an emotional aspect to it. Apologize for the noise in the background. There's a lifestyle to retirement too. You got to ask yourself, where do you want to live? What city or state do you want to live in? Do you want to downsize? Do you want to move to a city with less taxes?
Right.
These are the things that you got to ask yourself, when you are ready to retire. Do you want to travel? Do you want to, just sit down and rest? Do you want to start a business?
Do you want bitches?
Like, do you want to volunteer, at some community rec center or something like that? What do you want to do for your lifestyle when you're retiring? Because the financial aspect is just one thing, but then it's also a lifestyle that you want to live as you're retiring, and what would you want that to be?
Right. Hey, as somebody asked, as an entrepreneur, can you contribute to Social Security?
You can, but like anything, it's more work. What do I mean by that? That would entail you contacting Social Security, letting them know your business, and they will allow you the option to put money into the Social Security. From my understanding, they may have a couple of different options. The last time I checked them a while ago, where they only had two options. You either pay a lump sum every year at the end of the year, or you can put in a monthly amount that you think you're going to be making off of your income on a monthly basis. Now, there's always a stipulation. Once you do that, please understand, now that Social Security has that information, everything is being monitored. So that means that if you're doing your taxes, you better be doing your taxes the right way. I only say that because this entrepreneur life ain't a game out here, fellas. People listening in, it's not a game. You got to be paying attention to what you're doing. If you're paying $400 a month in Social Security, and then that's $5,000 a year, but then you put that you made $30,000 for the year, and you wrote off $25,000 in expenses, the math ain't mathing. IRS is going to get you, so you got to be paying attention to what you're doing. But you can put it in there, and you should, but make sure you're taking the proper steps. Having an accountant, having a tax person to talk to, so you know what you're doing and not just putting yourself in other situations where you're getting audited because you're putting in random numbers because you lollygagging.
Man, we're going to be spitting this game forever.
For real, that shit crazy. So, but the thing was, if you're an entrepreneur, wouldn't it be better to, let's say, stack your money and then put your money into a mutual fund or some shit, and then live off of that as you get older? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all about discipline, Lakari. Honestly, it's all about discipline at the end of the day. Yeah. To your point, that is probably the ultimate route. That is the ultimate route. Why? Because let's be honest, all you're doing with Social Security is dumping in money, and you're not gaining interest on it. You're just dumping in your own money, and you still get taxed on it. You know what I mean? So that's what Social Security is. People don't realize that's what actual Security is. They take out money out of your check. It gets taxed and it gets rolled in there. So the point is, though, is that, to your point, Mr. Lakari, that is the better option, because now you got investment coming on, you got interest growing on it.
Right.
But this is for people that want I don't want to say the easier route, but if it's the route that's convenient for them, it is a thing.
Right.
But we had jobs at some point in our career. If we get old, we could still get some type of Social Security, right?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Social Security literally projects what you're down to the dollar. That's what I told you. So for me right now, right, I know the number in my head. I get $2,631 for the rest of my life, based off if I never go back to 9 to 5. Like,
where do you go to do that? Where do you go to do that?
Oh, you go to Social Security website. You create a whole profile. They'll ask you Social Security, ask you security questions. It's I think socialsecurity.com or something like that.
And it'll generate the number that you would get at at your retirement.
Absolutely. All of us on the call, the Social Security number is determined right now. The minute you start working, literally, it tracks. Like if you're a person that's 20 years old, you jump on it, it'd be like, okay, you only making $30,000. If you stay at $30,000, by the time you're 67, you will retire with X amount of dollars per month.
Shit, I'm probably gonna be making like $50 a month or something.
Go check your joint today.
BMG.
I was always in and out of jobs and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't really like, you know what I mean? Like, because you have some people who they work and they've been working since they was like 16 and they've been steady working full time. Like that wasn't me. I was unemployed for half my life. You know what I'm saying? So,
no, but to your point, Mr. Lakai, that's why it's real though. Like all jokes aside, if you think about it, that's why when it comes to immigrants, and I can say this because I got West Indians in my family and stuff like that. I had a relative where his Social Security was $300 a month. Can't do nothing because he was doing construction all the time and off the books and all that. And it came back to $300.
Yeah, that off the book shit.
Yeah, that off the book shit. Yeah, real talk.
You know what I mean? So
that's important because at the end of the day, when you have Social Security, the government is keeping track of your work history, so they're able to show you how much you're going to be getting to the dollar amount. But when you're doing on your own as an independent contractor, as an entrepreneur, you have to be the one to keep track. That's why it's more important for you to have that discipline to put your money into these avenues, like you said, Mr. Lucario, because it's up to you.
Right.
Businessman, to make sure that you have money for retirement. Social Security is not going to be the driving factor for your retirement when you get older, based off of that factor, right? BMG, I just did the number, right? I just did some calculations while the fellows was talking. If you want to retire at 35, you'll need $2.5 million.
That's crazy.
If you want to retire at 35. And that's just me assuming that you're making the average $50,000 a year. If you're making less than $50,000 a year, that means you're going to need more to retire with. If that makes sense, just go by the formula.
So with the formula, is it saying like, so let's say you make $50,000 a year, you're saying that you would need like $1 million by the time you want to retire?
Right, because I'm factoring the retirement age, right, which is 67. But I'm going with 65 just because it's an easier number. I'm going with 65. So if you do calculations, if you do $50,000 a year, when you're 65, not before 65, when you're 65 times 25, right, or times 20. So we do $50,000 a year times 20.
Yo. How the fuck I sneeze in my arm?
So you're 85. So at that point, you're solving for your lifespan. Most people, if you live past 85, you're considered lucky.
But my question is, where is the money coming from? Like, so I make 50,000. Where is this $1 million? So you're saying I need to make $1 million for 20 years?
No. You need to make $50,000 a year after 65 per year.
Oh, so where's
in its totality, you would have made $1 million from age 65 to 85. You would have made $1 million, $50,000 per year.
So Mr. Lucario's question is, where's this money coming from that you're talking about? So to clarify,
but that's my point. Is that the answer is exactly what we're talking about right now: the different streams of income for retirement.
Exactly.
So you're saying that you would need to be making $50,000 a year, right?
That's correct.
At 65, at
age 65
years old for 20 years.
That's correct. So whatever you got to do, however you're making your money, whether it's through your investment.
Where's the retirement part coming in?
So the retirement part is coming in from all the investments, all the things that you have money coming in from. Social Security. That's why we're saying you got to know what your Social Security is. That's why we're saying that you got to have a 401k and know what that amount is. That's why we're saying you want to get an IUL because we all have access to the information. And I want to simplify this to the simplest. If you make $50,000 a year, the general rule of thumb for Social Security is you get half of what you put in. So if you make $50,000 a year, that means Social Security at best is giving you $25,000 a year. And if you're only bringing in $25,000 a year after you retire, that means you can't live half your life. That means you can't afford half the stuff you pay for on a regular basis.
Correct.
So therefore, you're going further in the hole.
So hold on. So I'm confused because I'm slow. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, no. We want to break it down.
That's what we have. That's what we have for.
So let's say I'm 44 now, right? So this is rounded to 45, right? I want to retire at 65, right? I want to retire and I want to be making $50,000 a month retired. How do I?
Okay, so we can.
So you're not. So and I want to clarify that too.
Hold on. You want so you want to make $50,000 a month?
No, $50,000 a year. Retire. So I'm 65. I'm retired. I'm making $50,000. I'm 66. I'm taking $50,000. I'm 67. I'm making $50,000, and I'm not doing nothing. I'm retired. How does that work?
What's your stream of income at that point? Like I'm saying, what's your? Where's
the money coming from?
That's my question. Where's the money coming from?
That's the point. The money is coming. That's the point. The money is coming from your Social Security. That's why. That's why. And let's simplify it to your point, Ms. Locar. Let's simplify it to Joe Schmo that you're making $50,000 a year, right? That's really about maybe about $3,800, $3,700 a month after taxes. Pretty much that means that Social Security is only going to give you probably about like $1,300 a month after taxes when you retire. So if you did,
but that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, what my question is so you're saying you're getting $1,300 a month?
Yep. After you retire from Social Security.
What I'm saying is, how do I get $50,000 a month retirement instead of $1,300?
No, you mean 50 a year? Hold on. You keep saying.
Yeah, I say a month. My bad. 50 a year. That's what I'm saying.
Correct. You have to replace that income is the point of what we're saying. You have to replace that income. That's the whole point of it. You have to replace it. That's why you're going to say.
My question is when you're, so I'm 45, let's say I'm working, and I work my job and Social Security takes a portion of that money away, right? Social Security, right? So what I'm saying is that after I've been working for all these years, and let's say I've been making $50,000 a year in my job, and I'm working all these years and Social Security takes a portion of the money, right? How do I continue to still have $50,000 a year and I'm not working anymore? That's the question. You see what I'm saying?
That's it right there. That's it right there. You don't. That's the thing right there.
That's what I'm asking. So
you don't. It's from the streams of income that you got going on. So to answer your direct question, Mr. Locario, is that if you had a Social Security, you know that you're going to get $25,000 a year out of that, roughly. Those are not real numbers, generally speaking. Right. 25 grand. So you're short 25 grand. That's where your 401k comes in. So if you retired and you had a 401k, you had 300,000. That's where your 401k comes in. You're going to say, hey, I got 300,000. If I'm going to live to, and somebody grab a calculator. If I'm going to live to 85 years old, how much is 300,000 divided by another 20 years? How much will that bring each year?
So basically what you're saying is that once you retire, for the average person, you're not going to really be like making the same amount of money you was.
No,
that's correct.
Not the literally 80% of people, 80% of people, not the average person, 80% of people.
Because I'm like, wait a second, if I've been making all this money and why the fuck would I retire then? You know what I'm saying?
and that's why this conversation is so important.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because you have to take all the multiple streams of income prior to retirement,
right?
And it's you're basically calculating how much each stream is going to be producing throughout those years.
Right.
So, for example, when we do quotes for life insurance, right, we'll let the person know at age 65, you'll have about maybe $300,000 in your cash value alone, right? If you overfund it properly, starting from now, right, based off of their monthly premiums. But the reason why this is so important is because, to your point, when you reach 65, that same $50,000 you're not going to be producing anymore. So you have to find that income replacement. And just one of the streams, you would have $300,000 from your life insurance policy. If you have an IRA, if it's performing properly, right, and you're still getting anywhere from 6 to 10% in that individual retirement account. So based off of how much you're putting in that, let's just add another 100,000, maybe 150,000. Now you have 450,000, right? So if you see these numbers keep adding up, on top of that 25,000, if you're getting from your Social Security, so these are the numbers that you have to look at. And let's just say if we added all of that up together, it's a little less than $500,000 that you'll have for your retirement. Now, you went from making $50,000 a year to $25,000 a year. Now that I was saying your lifestyle, now you have to downsize because you were making before, you're not going to be producing now. So you have to keep that in mind. But the goal is to uphold that lifestyle when you ready to retire, because you want to live comfortably at the bare minimum, the same amount that you were making per year. That's why we give that formula to set the expectation high, so most people can reach for that high goal. Worst case scenario, they fall in the clouds, and they'll realistically, if they're not making 50,000 during retirement, maybe 25, 30, but they'll get somewhere close enough to what they were accustomed to making. Yes, they have to downsize.
I think that makes sense too, because at that point, once you older, there's a lot of shit that you probably felt you needed money for that you probably don't need.
You don't really care for it as much.
I'm old. I ain't tricking on these bitches no more. My kids are grown, so fuck them niggas. You know what I'm saying?
It's real talk. It's real talk. But that's why it's good decision making. You know what I mean? And I know we're running out of time, but to simplify it even further is that, to Kadeem's point, Mr. Lucario, is that where's that number that we're giving you? That's not set in stone, because remember, in my work history career, there's a point when I made 20,000. There's a point when I made 30,000. There's a point when I made 50,000. There's a point when I made 70,000. There's a point when I made 90,000. The point is, though, those numbers don't stay the same. So to Katie's point, it's about your lifestyle and what you have and what kind of life you want to live. So it's not one flat number. It truly isn't. But at minimum, you got to average something decent to even barely survive, or else we all know what happens. It's your moms or your pops or your elderly people that have to move in the house with you. They got to move in your basement. As an adult, what happens is, how it looks like is that you have no control over what you do in your daily life. Your kids is taking care of you, or you end up in a nursing home. They feed you at 9 a.m., 2 o'clock, and at 7 p.m., and you got no control. You can't have snacks in between. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody else is going to control your life if you don't get it together right now. That's the reality of the situation. You know it's true. It's like a baby. Once a man, twice a child. Once you that age, you don't got the right money, you can't do nothing. You got to shut up. You know how many times you got to tell elderly people, like, nah, this is what you're going to do. You got to do it. Well, I want to do. Well, can you do it yourself? No. Okay, so you got to shut up and listen to what I'm saying. You got to do what I got to do. Question is, do you want to be that adult, have somebody else boss you around, or you want to do whatever the hell you can do until you can't remember what to do? You know what I mean? That's the life I'm trying to live.
Damn, see, I was planning on popping bottles and buying icy chains and shit. You know what I'm saying? Now I got to rethink everything. Now I got to.
And then also, fellas, let's not forget the emotional side to retirement. And what do I mean by that, right? Most people, they've been working at a job for X amount of years, right? And so that job has gave them some type of identity, some type of purpose, some type of level of fulfillment. And how are you planning to transition out of that career? The reason why that's so important is because you want to figure out what you want to do outside of your job. Like, who are you outside of your career?
Right, that's true.
It's important because when you leave your job or your career that you've been at for so long, you want to know what you want to do with your life. I remember my grandfather, he worked at Delta Airlines.
Oh yeah, he
for like 30, 40 years, right? For a minute, right? But then when he moved to Florida, right? Bought a house, moved to Florida. How long did that money last him when him and my grandfather? It lasted them for 10 years. They had $500,000. And guess how long it lasted? Exactly 10 years. So what ended up happening from 2001 to 2011, they were good. But in 2012, he had to go find a job.
Damn.
Right? And then
that's why. What is the coincidental math on that, Kate? 10 times 50 is $500,000. What a coinky ding.
You get what I'm saying? And then so then now imagine you have to go look for a job when you're in your 60s. It's like, I want people to think about that. Like, you're looking for a job in your 60s. And then now, once again, because you know he's so used to the lifestyle. We had a lotto shop in our basement, right? Like it was official. Like in Brooklyn, we had a lotto shop in our basement. So my grandfather knew everybody in East Flatbush. Everybody came to our crib for to play lotto. The lifestyle completely changed when we moved to Florida. So the lifestyle changed, the income changed. He had to go and find another job, like I said, in his 60s, to the point where he was working so long that he caught Alzheimer's, and he had to stop. He worked so long that he had to stop working because he forgot how to get to work.
Damn,
crazy.
He forgot how to get to work, and that's how serious it is. And this is the reason why we tell people when it comes to retirement, everything has to get planned out. From the financial side, have to make the money last as long as possible. From the lifestyle side, where you're going to live, things of that nature, and
budget.
Emotional side, what are you going to do, in transitioning from one career into the rest of your life? It's super important.
And the budget, you got a budget.
This was the most, I think this is the most informative and scariest show we ever done.
I love it. That means some change is gonna happen.
So we don't mean to scare you, but if you are scared, then definitely go to legacybuildersus.com. Holla at Rashidi, holla at Kaleem. Talk to them, get your budget right, learn how to contribute to your 401k, learn how to get yourself a life insurance policy that you can borrow against that can help you later on in life to retire, learn how to set yourself up with annuities, learn how to set yourself up with mutual funds. All these things are to help you later on in life. You're going to need it. It's look, the longer you live is the more expensive life is, period. You're gonna need it, bro. You're gonna fucking need it. Like ain't nobody trying to, like, this ain't no type of shit where you could debate the truth. Right. It's going to fucking happen. You understand? This ain't no, oh yeah, well, I don't need this. No, this is the type of shit you fucking need, unless you just want to be one of them niggas that, whatever the government gonna give you for Social Security, you just gonna live on that. And then your ass gonna be a greeter at Walmart when you 86. You know what I'm saying? Welcome to Walmart. You know what I mean? Like, nah, nigga, you gotta, it's serious shit. Like me, I want to be chilling in the beach house, nigga. That's what I want to be doing, but I need good money for that. You know what I'm saying? I need $50,000 a year. I need to be making pretty much the same as I'm making now, nigga. Like, you feel me? Right. That's what I want. That's what I'm working for. So let's get it, man. So guys, make sure you holler at Legacy. See, like I said, Lakari and myself, we already got accounts with Legacy Builders. We already got, funds and shits going with these guys. You know what I'm saying? Among other things. So, and we still got work to do. So that's right. If you ain't got nothing going on, excuse me, then fuck. If you ain't got nothing going on, if you ain't got no 401k, you ain't budgeting, you ain't doing nothing, then you really need to get with legacybuildersus.com. Get your free consultation, go to one of the events or multiple events, learn some more about financial literacy, learn how to set your life up for your future, man, for the rest of your life. And check it out, like the life insurance policies can set up your family for the rest of their life too. So figure that out.
All right, people. So anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, last little quick piece, 10 seconds. It's not going to be free consultations for much longer because we're getting busier and people are booking up the books. So y'all can keep playing if y'all want. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, can we still call you guys?
Yeah, y'all free. Y'all on the books for life. You know what I mean? Y'all lifers.
Thanks. This is like, yo, today's price ain't yesterday's price.
Exactly.
Kelly, what you saying?
Now, last thing I say is that retirement isn't the end. It is your reward for you doing the things that you're supposed to do right now. So you guys call us and hit us up.
Yeah, man.
So guys, remember the truth is inside you. Peace. We out.